Emily Harper had spent the last 3 years fighting a battle she never chose. Ever since her father's sudden death, life had become a constant struggle against overdue bills, exhausting work shifts, and responsibilities far too heavy for someone her age. Every decision she made revolved around survival. Every dollar she earned disappeared into rent, groceries, or her younger brother's education. She had no room in her life for danger. Unfortunately, danger found her anyway. One rainy evening in downtown Chicago, a routine walk home placed her at the wrong intersection at the worst possible moment. Gunfire erupted nearby. Black SUVs screeched across the street. Men in expensive suits moved with terrifying efficiency, while chaos swallowed the block. Emily saw something she was never supposed to see, and within minutes, her ordinary life vanished. The name behind the violence was Damian Cross. To the public, Damian was a wealthy businessman whose influence stretched across the city. Behind closed doors, however, everyone knew the truth. He was one of the most feared Mafia bosses in America. Stories followed his name everywhere. Stories about enemies disappearing. Stories about ruthless decisions. Stories about a man who never showed mercy. After determining that Emily's life was now in danger because she had witnessed the attack, Damian ordered her brought to his private penthouse until the situation could be controlled. The penthouse occupied the entire top floor of a towering skyscraper overlooking the city skyline. Every entrance was guarded. Security cameras covered every angle. Luxury surrounded her from every direction. Yet the place felt more like a fortress than a home. Emily expected threats. She expected interrogation. She expected to become another victim trapped inside a criminal empire. Instead, none of those things happened. Damian remained distant. Rules were established, ensuring her safety and privacy. Staff members treated her with respect. No one laid a hand on her. Yet none of that reduced her fear. If anything, it made her more suspicious. Men like Damian Cross did not become powerful by being kind. There had to be a reason behind his behavior. As days passed, Emily noticed how everyone reacted whenever Damian entered a room. Conversation stopped. Shoulders stiffened. Eyes lowered. Fear followed him everywhere. And that fear only confirmed what she already believed. One afternoon, while speaking privately with a longtime housekeeper, Emily admitted the truth she had been carrying since arriving. In her eyes, Damian Cross was the most terrifying man she had ever encountered. What Emily did not realize was that Damian had entered the hallway moments earlier. He heard every word. The reaction that crossed his face was not anger. It was pain, raw, immediate, almost unbearable. For a brief moment, the powerful Mafia boss looked less like a predator and more like a man carrying wounds nobody else could see. Emily caught the expression before he turned away, and for the first time since arriving, fear was replaced by something else. Curiosity. Later that night, unable to sleep, Emily passed Damian's private office and froze when she saw him staring at an old photograph, his eyes glistening as if he were fighting back tears. The image of Damian Cross refusing to leave Emily's mind had nothing to do with violence. It was not the stories whispered across the city about disappearances, criminal empires, or ruthless business deals. It was the brief expression she had witnessed after he overheard her confession. The look had lasted only a second, but it had carried something she never expected to see in a man like him. Pain. The following days inside the penthouse only deepened her confusion. Emily expected intimidation. She expected surveillance designed to make her feel trapped. Instead, she found herself living under protection that seemed carefully structured around her comfort rather than Damian's control. Security guards monitored every entrance. Drivers remained on standby. Additional personnel checked every package entering the building. Yet none of the precautions appeared intended to threaten her. Everything seemed focused on keeping danger away from her. The contradiction bothered her more than fear ever had. An emotional truth often hides behind a terrifying reputation, and Emily slowly began wondering whether the city feared Damian because of who he truly was, or because of what people needed him to be. She started paying attention. Small details revealed themselves. Damian rarely raised his voice. He never mistreated employees. Staff members spoke about him with respect rather than terror. Even senior security personnel seemed fiercely loyal instead of merely obedient. That loyalty felt genuine. People willingly followed him. That realization unsettled Emily. A cruel man could force obedience. A broken man could inspire loyalty. Late one evening, unable to sleep, Emily wandered through one of the penthouse's quiet hallways. The city lights shimmered beyond massive windows overlooking downtown Seattle. From a partially open office door, she noticed a faint glow. Inside sat Damien. Alone, stacks of documents covered his desk. Financial reports, security updates, legal files. The workload appeared endless. Dark circles beneath his eyes revealed exhaustion that no amount of money could hide. Hours passed. He never rested, never left, never seemed capable of stopping. The sight reminded Emily less of a criminal kingpin and more of someone carrying a burden too heavy to put down. Over the following week, she noticed similar patterns. Damien slept very little. Most nights he remained awake until dawn. Some evenings he reviewed old photographs stored inside a locked cabinet. Whenever he looked at those pictures, his entire demeanor changed. The cold businessman disappeared. Something haunted emerged in his place. Something wounded. Emily considered asking questions, but quickly learned the household followed an unspoken rule. Nobody discussed Damien's personal life. Not the staff. Not the guards. Not even his closest advisors. Whenever family became part of conversation, silence immediately followed. That silence only fueled her curiosity. One afternoon, while researching recent news articles on her phone, Emily stumbled across records of anonymous donations connected to dozens of community programs. Shelters, scholarships, medical funds, youth centers. The contributions totaled millions of dollars. No public announcements. No publicity campaigns. No credit. The funds simply appeared. Following the financial trail led repeatedly to organizations connected to Damien's business network. The discovery shattered another piece of the monster she had imagined. Days later, while passing through a private corridor near the penthouse library, Emily overheard two longtime employees speaking quietly. The moment they noticed her presence, both fell silent, but not before she caught a single sentence. A sentence that instantly froze her in place. They had mentioned a woman whose disappearance had destroyed Damien Cross years ago. The sentence Emily overheard refused to leave her mind. A woman whose disappearance had destroyed Damien Cross. For days, the mystery lingered in the background of every observation she made. The exhaustion in Damien's eyes, the photographs hidden inside his office, the strange sadness that appeared whenever family was mentioned, all of it seemed connected to someone who was no longer there. Curiosity slowly pushed Emily toward answers. While Damien remained occupied with business matters, she began quietly searching through publicly available records, archived news articles, and old reports connected to the Cross family. One name appeared repeatedly: Scarlett Cross, Damien's younger sister. According to official reports, Scarlett had disappeared nearly 10 years earlier. The details surrounding the case were surprisingly limited for a disappearance involving one of the city's most powerful families. Most articles contained only vague information before abruptly ending. Police statements contradicted witness accounts. Dates failed to match. Entire portions of the investigation appeared incomplete. The deeper Emily looked, the stranger everything became. It was as if someone had deliberately erased parts of the story. An uncomfortable realization settled over her. Powerful people had buried the truth. An intellectual truth often frightened people more than violence. Lies required constant protection, while the truth only needed one crack to escape. Emily continued digging. Former business associates connected to the Cross organization refused interviews. Retired employees suddenly ended conversations whenever Scarlett's name surfaced. Even online records seemed strangely fragmented. Someone had spent years making sure questions remained unanswered. Then Emily discovered references to an internal power struggle that had shaken Damien's organization around the same time Scarlett vanished. Several senior figures disappeared from public view shortly afterward. Others were quietly removed from leadership positions. No explanations were ever given. The timing felt impossible to ignore. As Emily connected scattered pieces together, a darker picture emerged. Scarlett had vanished immediately after a conflict inside the organization. Someone close to Damien had betrayed him. The possibility explained things she never understood before. Damien's obsession with security, his refusal to trust outsiders, his relentless need to protect innocent people from danger. None of it came from power. It came from guilt. Somewhere deep inside, he still blamed himself for failing the one person he could not save. Meanwhile, rival criminal organizations seemed unusually interested whenever Scarlett's case surfaced. Intelligence reports and underground rumors repeatedly linked her name to ongoing conflicts between competing groups. Whatever happened 10 years ago was still affecting powerful people today. That meant Scarlett's disappearance was more than a family tragedy. It was a secret capable of threatening entire organizations. Late one evening, Emily accessed a collection of files recently leaked through an anonymous source. Most appeared heavily redacted. One document immediately caught her attention. A classified investigative report. Her pulse quickened as she read the final page. The evidence was incomplete. The conclusions were disputed. But one statement stood out above everything else. There was credible evidence suggesting Scarlett Cross might still be alive. The classified report haunted Emily long after she finished reading it. If Scarlett Cross was truly alive, then every unanswered question surrounding her disappearance carried far greater significance than anyone realized. More importantly, it forced Emily to look at Damien through an entirely different perspective. Over the following days, she paid closer attention to him. The more she observed, the more obvious his emotional burden became. Damien Cross commanded one of the most powerful criminal organizations in the city. Men feared him. Rivals respected him. Law enforcement monitored his every move. Yet none of those threats seemed capable of disturbing him. Instead, his attention remained fixed on something buried in the past. Every night, long after the penthouse had fallen silent, he disappeared into his private office. From a distance, Emily occasionally noticed light beneath the door hours before sunrise. Curiosity eventually led her closer. Through a narrow opening one evening, she caught a glimpse of Damien sitting alone behind his desk. Old family photographs were spread across the surface. His eyes remained fixed on a single picture. A younger version of himself stood beside Scarlett. Both were smiling. Neither knew how much pain waited ahead. For several minutes, Damien simply stared at the photograph. The expression on his face revealed a level of grief no public reputation could ever hide. Emily suddenly understood something important. People often fear violence because it can wound the body, but guilt is far more dangerous because it never stops attacking the soul. The realization changed everything. As tensions inside the organization increased, rival Mafia leaders began testing Damien's authority. Reports of challenges, betrayals, and secret alliances arrived almost daily. Several trusted captains openly questioned his decisions. Others seemed eager to exploit whatever weakness had emerged. Yet Damien never reacted with fear. Not when rivals threatened him. Not when money was lost. Not even when violence became inevitable. Only Scarlett affected him. Only her disappearance created visible cracks in the armor he wore before the world. Emily slowly realized his greatest fear was not death. It was failure. Somewhere deep inside, Damien blamed himself for what happened to his sister. Every decision he made now appeared shaped by that guilt. His increasing protectiveness toward Emily suddenly made sense. Additional guards followed her whenever she left the penthouse. Security procedures tightened around her. Threat assessments involving her safety received immediate attention. Damien never explained the behavior, but he did not need to. He had already lost one person he could not protect. He refused to lose another. For the first time since arriving at the penthouse, Emily's fear began giving way to understanding. She finally understood why Damien's expression had changed after overhearing her confession. Her fear had not offended him. It had hurt him, because he already viewed himself through the same unforgiving lens. Late one evening, while searching for information connected to Scarlett's disappearance, Emily entered Damien's office while he attended a meeting elsewhere. The room appeared ordinary at first glance. Then she noticed a loose panel hidden behind a bookshelf. Inside rested a small compartment, and inside the compartment lay an old brass key carefully wrapped in protective cloth. The label attached to it contained a single handwritten word that made Emily's pulse stop. Scarlett. The name attached to the brass Key sent a chill through Emily's body. Scarlet. For several moments, she simply stared at the worn label, tried to understand why Damien had hidden it so carefully. The key clearly meant something important, something connected to the sister whose disappearance continued haunting every corner of his life. Curiosity eventually overcame hesitation. The following evening, while Damien attended a series of meetings with senior members of his organization, Emily quietly returned to the office. The key remained exactly where she had found it. Taking it felt wrong, but leaving unanswered questions felt impossible. She slipped the key into her pocket and began searching the penthouse. After nearly 20 minutes, she discovered a reinforced steel door concealed behind decorative wall panels in an isolated section of the building. The lock matched perfectly. With a deep breath, Emily inserted the key. The mechanism clicked. The heavy door slowly opened. What waited inside was not a vault of money or weapons. It was grief. The room stretched far deeper than she expected. Every wall was covered with evidence gathered over nearly a decade. Photographs, maps, witness statements, investigation reports, handwritten notes, newspaper clippings, entire timelines carefully constructed and updated year after year. The room looked less like part of a criminal empire and more like the headquarters of someone obsessed with finding a missing person. Scarlett's face appeared everywhere. Dozens of photographs documented different stages of her life: family vacations, school events, birthdays, ordinary moments frozen forever. Emily slowly moved through the room, absorbing the magnitude of Damien's efforts. Every file told the same story. He had never stopped searching. An emotional truth revealed itself with painful clarity. Some people build empires for power. Others build them because they are chasing something they lost and cannot live without. For Damien, the empire had never been the destination. It had been a tool. Evidence scattered throughout the room showed millions of dollars spent funding private investigators, intelligence networks, international searches, and independent operations designed to locate Scarlett. The deeper Emily explored, the more heartbreaking reality became. Damien had sacrificed years of his life pursuing answers, and he had found almost none. Yet one discovery stood above everything else. Several files detailed an internal betrayal that occurred shortly before Scarlett vanished. The names had been partially removed, but enough information remained to reveal the truth. Someone Damien trusted had played a role in her disappearance. Someone close. Someone inside his own organization. Emily finally understood the guilt that haunted him. He blamed himself because he believed he had failed to recognize danger until it was too late. Near the back of the room, a desk held recently updated investigation materials. Unlike the older files, these documents contained dates from only weeks earlier. Emily's heartbeat accelerated. Someone was actively working the case. A fresh report described a possible sighting. Another referenced surveillance footage. Then she found a sealed envelope containing a single photograph. The image appeared recent, very recent. A woman stood outside an isolated building several states away. The picture was grainy but unmistakable. Emily recognized the face instantly. Scarlett Cross had been alive only weeks earlier. The photograph changed everything. For nearly 10 years, Scarlett Cross had existed somewhere between memory and myth. Most people believed she was dead. Others believed she had disappeared voluntarily. A few whispered that powerful enemies had erased her from existence. Now there was proof that none of those stories were true. She had been alive only weeks earlier, the moment Damien discovered the photograph. The entire atmosphere inside the penthouse transformed. Every available resource was redirected toward a single objective: find Scarlett. Private investigators were activated across multiple cities. Intelligence networks began tracking old leads that had been dismissed years ago. Trusted operatives disappeared into the field, carrying folders filled with new evidence. For the first time in years, Damien appeared driven by something stronger than grief: hope. Hope can be more dangerous than despair because it gives people a reason to risk everything. Emily quickly became involved in the investigation. The files she discovered contained coded notes and references that many of Damien's investigators had overlooked. Several messages hidden within old reports pointed toward abandoned properties, private warehouses, and safe houses scattered throughout the Pacific Northwest. The clues formed a pattern. Someone had been moving Scarlett from location to location. Someone with resources. Someone determined to keep her hidden. As Damien's search intensified, rival organizations began reacting. Information brokers suddenly disappeared. Witnesses stopped answering calls. Several individuals connected to old investigations were found dead under suspicious circumstances. The message was clear. Someone wanted the truth buried permanently. Then the attack started. One afternoon, a vehicle following Emily through downtown Seattle attempted to force her car off the road. Security personnel intervened before serious damage could occur, but the warning was impossible to ignore. Emily was no longer an observer. She had become a target. The closer they moved toward the truth, the more dangerous everything became. Meanwhile, financial records recovered from hidden accounts revealed an even larger conspiracy. Millions of dollars have flowed through shell companies linked to trafficking operations, illegal arms deals, and money laundering networks stretching across multiple countries. Scarlett's disappearance was not an isolated tragedy. It was connected to a criminal operation far larger than Damien had ever imagined. Even worse, evidence suggested several respected members of his own organization had secretly benefited from those activities. Trusted allies became suspects overnight. Old friendships collapsed under growing suspicion. Every new discovery raised another question. Every answer exposed another betrayal. For the first time, Damien realized the enemy responsible for destroying his family might never have been outside his organization. The threat had been much closer. Late one evening, an investigator delivered recovered surveillance footage from a private compound hidden outside the city. The video quality was poor. The recording lasted only seconds, yet it was enough. A woman matching Scarlett's appearance stepped into view before being escorted back inside the building. Alive. Unmistakably alive. Damien stared at the screen in stunned silence. Then his expression darkened as another figure appeared beside her, a man he recognized immediately, a man he trusted completely. The surveillance footage confirmed what Damien had feared most. Scarlett was alive, and the man standing beside her was someone he had trusted without hesitation for years. The realization did not arrive as shock alone. It arrived as collapse. Everything Damien had built, his empire, his loyalty structure, his internal hierarchy, suddenly revealed fractures that had existed beneath the surface for years. What once appeared as stability now looked like carefully maintained deception. The investigation shifted instantly from recovery to confrontation. Emily, working alongside Damien's remaining trusted operatives, uncovered financial trails that confirmed the worst possibility. Funds had been diverted through multiple layers of legitimate businesses, all ultimately connecting back to one individual, a man who had stood beside Damien since the earliest days of his rise, a man considered family. The betrayal was not sudden. It had been built slowly over years, hidden behind loyalty, reputation, and shared history. As the truth surfaced, the organization fractured almost immediately. Some members refused to believe it. Others chose sides without hesitation. Entire factions broke away overnight, each convinced they were defending the true legacy of the empire. Loyalty, once a foundation of Damien's power, became meaningless. Emily watched the collapse unfold in real time. Every conversation ended in suspicion. Every alliance dissolved into accusation. But there was no time to process the destruction. The location of Scarlett had finally been confirmed. A remote facility outside the city, heavily guarded, hidden beneath layers of private security and falsified ownership records. Damien made his decision without hesitation. No negotiations. No delays. A rescue operation was assembled within hours. Emily insisted on joining, despite the risk. Her understanding of the internal records proved crucial in identifying security blind spots. What began as an investigation had become something far more dangerous. A final confrontation. The night of the operation arrived under heavy rain. The facility was surrounded quickly and silently. Guards were neutralized before alarms could fully activate. Chaos erupted as hidden security teams responded. Inside the compound, years of lies collapsed in a matter of minutes. Damien moved to the corridors with singular focus, driven not by revenge but by something far more unstable. Resolution. When he finally reached a secured chamber, Scarlett stood behind reinforced glass, weakened but alive. The moment shattered everything that remained of the past 10 years. Damien did not hesitate. The final confrontation erupted in violence as the mastermind attempted escape. Emily fought alongside the remaining operatives as alarms blared and the structure descended into chaos. The truth of years of betrayal was no longer hidden. It was exposed in fire, steel, and breaking glass. In the end, Scarlet was freed. The rescue succeeded. But victory came at a devastating cost. During the final moment of escape, Damien stepped in front of a fatal strike meant for Scarlet. He collapsed before anyone could reach him. The Empire's architect finally brought down not by enemies, but by the weight of his own past. As Scarlet was pulled to safety, Emily turned back and saw Damien lying motionless amid the wreckage. The night had ended, but not everything had survived it. The expression Damien showed when he heard Emily say she feared him finally reveals the heartbreaking truth behind the city's most feared man. Damien survives emergency surgery, though his condition remains fragile. Scarlet is finally reunited with him, bringing closure to years of silence and uncertainty. The criminal conspiracy behind her disappearance collapses rapidly. Arrests are made. Hidden networks dismantle under exposure. The empire built on secrecy begins to disintegrate. For the first time, Damien is no longer fighting to control everything around him. He is forced to confront what remains within himself. Emily watches this transformation closely. What she once perceived as fearsome authority now appears as exhaustion shaped by years of unresolved grief. Scarlet's return becomes the beginning of healing, not just for her, but for Damien as well. The burden he carried alone begins to shift as truth replaces silence. Emily realizes something profound. Fear had distorted her perception from the beginning. What she saw as danger was actually pain misread through reputation. Damien, in his most vulnerable state, no longer hides behind power. He acknowledges responsibility, guilt, and the years lost to searching for something he feared he would never find. Scarlet becomes a bridge between past and present, helping him begin the slow process of emotional recovery. Emily is no longer an outsider. She becomes part of a future that is no longer defined by fear, but by understanding. Trust replaces suspicion. Silence is replaced with honesty. The man once known only for fear begins redefining himself through accountability rather than control. And Emily finally understands the truth behind that expression she saw the moment he heard her fear him. It was never anger. It was heartbreak. Because the most feared man in the city had spent years terrified of one thing more than death itself. That everyone around him would finally see what he saw every time he looked in the mirror. A man who failed the person he loved most.